2025 is going to be a humongous year for watches, and I'm honestly so excited. There's so many anniversaries that are happening in 2025, and in this video, that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about which brands have which anniversaries and what I think they'll do. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always, and I just got back from acupuncture. It's great when you can move again. My back's always been really screwed up. I was almost sick in acupuncture. Pretended I didn't feel sick, but I did feel sick. But I feel a lot better for it. But anyway, let's talk about 2025 and what is special about 2025 to so many brands. Okay, so let's start with the big boy, the boring one, but everyone wants to know about this brand. It's Rolex. Rolex is going to be 120 years old. But not only that, the Rolex GMT Master 2 is turning 70. Now, when we look back at previous anniversaries from Rolex, we don't get special editions. We don't get anniversary editions, typically speaking. What we do get is subtle updates. That's what Rolex is best at. You know, they change a shade of green and everyone loses their mind. So what do I think they're going to be doing this year? Well, I think they're going to be updating their GMT Master 2. What would I like to see? Well, I'd definitely like to see maybe a new color variation, maybe a new GMT hand color, maybe a new movement, something exciting. What do I think is genuinely going to happen? I think there's just going to be minute changes. They have a winning formula. They don't really need to change much, so I don't think they will. But it would be cool if they made some really big changes. Next up, we have Omega, and Omega are actually going to be celebrating 30 years of partnership with, you guessed it, James Bond. Now, Omega have had a really interesting year in 2024. They've released a lot more than I thought they would. I mean, there was the Speedmaster White, then there was the Speedmaster First Watch on the Moon, then there was the Omega Seamaster No Date, then there was another Omega Seamaster No Date, then there was an Aquaterra. I mean, they've kind of been going ham with the releases, and I'm all for it because I'm kind of an Omega fanboy. And maybe they're doing all these launches this side of the year because they're only saving up for one or two big launches next year. That would kind of make sense in my business brain. And perhaps that's because of this anniversary that's happening with James Bond. Now, we all know that Daniel Craig is retired from his role of James Bond, and to me, he was James Bond. I don't know who was James Bond to you guys, but whenever I think of James Bond, I always think of Daniel Craig. I think he was the best James Bond. I really do. And maybe it's just a nostalgia thing because I grew up with Daniel Craig. It probably is. But I think he was an unbelievable James Bond. Now that he's retired, I think that Omega might coincide the new release with the selection of the new James Bond. That's not to say there's going to be a new movie coming out soon, but it might just be that they select who's going to be the next James Bond next year. Next on the list, we have Breguet's 250th anniversary. Breguet, a brand that nobody speaks about, and I have no idea why, because in terms of history of a brand, they have some of the most incredible history known to the watch industry. Breguet was founded by Abraham Louis Breguet in 1775, which is pretty unbelievable. And he also invented the tourbillon. Literally, he invented it. Breguet is a brand that genuinely has so much historical importance that I think it should be spoken about more. Their watchmaking is just unbelievable. And actually, on that note, I have a Breguet clock up on the wall behind me. It's a Breguet Marine clock. I literally have a wall clock of Breguet because of their historical importance. Not only did Breguet invent the tourbillon, let's just talk about some of the history for a second. Breguet actually invented the first wristwatch ever in 1810, and that was the Queen of Naples, for the Queen of Naples at the time, which was Carolina Murat. But if we rewind a little bit further, Breguet actually invented the first ever self-winding watch in 1780. So Breguet, in terms of history, is one of the most important brands in the luxury watch industry. And I really hope that they bring out something big, something sporty this year. I feel like they need an injection of youth into that brand because it's a very classical brand as it is. It's a very expensive brand as it is. I feel like they need some kind of sports 70s looking watch to appeal to a little bit of a younger market. Next on the list, and you guys will like this one because who doesn't like AP? It's their 150th anniversary next year. So in the past with AP, we can see that they actually make an active effort to kind of mark their anniversary series. They have an active effort to release a bunch of watches on the anniversaries to mark that special occasion. For example, in 2022, AP released a variety of new watches in different metals, dial colors, complications, and all that good stuff to mark the 50th anniversary of the Royal Oak. And in the back of these watches on the rotor, you actually had 150 years etched into that rotor. So it's very much not the Rolex formula where they just change little details and don't actually mark them as the anniversary piece. It's very much creating a piece solely for that purpose, not to be sold after that. Now, I think what AP are going to do is release a bunch of their high complication watches to celebrate the 150th anniversary, something to show people what they can do. Now, us muggles can't really afford things at 2, 3, 4, 500 grand, and if they're limited, it could go for millions. But I do think that they might release 1 or 2 Royal Oaks just to celebrate that 150th anniversary, and I really hope they do. The next brand is Vacheron Constantin, and I know it's so weird that all of these brands are aging with round numbers at the same time. It's almost as if they were all competing against each other at the same period. Vacheron Constantin, probably my favorite brand in the world, will turn 270 years old. Now, typically in the past, when they've had anniversaries or special editions, they released highly complicated stuff, really high complication timepieces that, again, is really out of our budget. But to generate the hype, to generate the marketing, to generate the focus on the brand, I do think they will bring out an overseas version. Now, whether that's a chrono or a 3-hand, I don't know. I'm hoping for a steel 3-hand in green, because I think that would look sick. And they have the gold version, but not the more affordable. I say more affordable, it's still extremely expensive. Sometimes when you work in the watch industry for long enough, you get kind of numb about talking about numbers. And then you need to come back to reality and think, could I ever afford that? Normally the answer is no. So I think they'll release tons of highly complicated watches. They'll maybe look at their patrimony collection, and I think they'll definitely look at the overseas collection. It could happen where they only release one watch that is like a big hitter, a unicorn watch. And that is why I think they might go down the lines of a steel overseas green dial. Moving on to the next one. Blancpain is going to be 290 years old. 290 years old. The oldest watch brand in the world. Not in continuous production, that goes to Vacheron, but the oldest watch brand in the world. I feel like what Blancpain need, and they're kind of doing this with the new Chrono 50 Fathoms in blue, the flyback. I thought that was sick. They're starting to appeal to a younger market. I think they just need to hone in on the 50 Fathoms collection, make it a little bit smaller, a little bit thinner, and a touch more sporty. And they'll be flying. I think Blancpain is a brand that I can feel energy from. It's almost like a unexploded grenade. It has the potential, but it just needs that little tick, and then it's gonna boom. And I honestly think that will happen with Blancpain at one stage, and I think this is the perfect time to do it on their 290th anniversary. I think they will release some of their more classical models. Again, they're high complicated models, showing off what they can do, but to get the hype, to get the attraction from the younger market and also some of the kind of middle market, they need to release their Blancpain 50 Fathoms, a nice sporty version that looks brilliant. Zenith is the next brand we're going to talk about that's going to be 160 years old. Now, there was a previous CEO to Zenith called Julien Tourneur, and Julien Tourneur revitalized that brand, injected so much passion, sportiness, and modernness into Zenith. You can see this with their Skyline collection. You can see this with their Chronomaster Sport collection. You can see it with a bunch of their watches. So what I think they need to do now, because they're actually on the right paths as it is just release more color variations of, for example, the Chronomaster Sport. Something that everybody kind of would want and like and would draw the eye. I think that's the route that they will go down. Something sporty. I don't think it'll be a new collection. Maybe there'll be a couple of limited editions, but I think they need to bring out a line that is fully in production, that isn't limited, that everybody wants. And that will trickle down into the other lines. I think that is what they're going to do. Now, that could be a green Chronomaster Sport. I don't know. I hope so. That would be cool. Glashütte Original and A. Lange & Söhne, the two German watchmakers, are both turning 180 years old. Now, typically speaking, A. Lange & Söhne don't have the production capacity to do much in the way of numbers. So I think it will be high complicated pieces from A. Lange & Söhne to celebrate that anniversary. Whereas Glashütte Original can produce a little bit more. So I think that they will bring out, hopefully, some CQs, because I think they're doing brilliant work with the CQs. Hopefully bring out some funky colors in there. Hopefully amend some of their dimensions, that little touch. I think that would be sick. Tag Heuer and Panerai are both turning 165. Now, Tag Heuer this year, we saw them getting into COSC certified movements. I think there's going to be a real push with Tag to hone in on their movements, being COSC certified and rolling out to more lines within Tag Heuer's range. I genuinely think that, and I think that's the right move. Their designs are amazing. They're Tag Heuer, and they have a ton of history behind that brand. So now it's just honing in on the movements. And I think if they carry on doing that, they're going to win, because Tag Heuer are unbelievable. I really get frustrated when people bash Tag Heuer, saying that it's more of a marketing brand, because there's so much history within that brand. And I don't think it's fair to dismiss them as a marketing brand just because they appeal to a younger market. I think a brand that appeals to a younger market is doing it right, because they're getting more of us, the watch enthusiasts, into the market. And then for Panerai, I think that Panerai have always been a brand that go their own way. And I do believe that they should continue to do that. It's good having a point of difference in the industry. And weirdly enough, I don't think I'd buy a Panerai to be small on my wrists. Even though I do prefer smaller sizes, if I was buying a Panerai, I would buy a big, bulky Panerai because it's a Panerai. And I think that is a superpower. That is magic, what they've created there, because their brand is subliminal with bigger watches. So I think they should hone in on that. Bring out more Panerai Luminors, more Panerai Submersibles, and really get the big sizes going and make people talk, get a buzz going around it. I think that's what they'll do. And then we have Grand Seiko. Grand Seiko are turning 65, so they're the youngest of the brands that we're going to speak about today. And in previous years, we've seen special editions from Grand Seiko, and they actually do bring out special editions quite frequently. So I do think we'll see the same thing next year. They've got their spring drive movement, and their automatic movements are brilliant. They don't really need that much work there. I do feel that their GMT models could be made a little bit less bulky, just personally speaking. I think their elegance model I've literally got one of them on right now. They nail it. So I would like to see maybe a special edition in terms of the elegance model, a dial change. That would be really cool. And maybe honing in the specs of their GMT watches. But enough of what I think. What do you think these brands are going to do this year? Do you think there's going to be any big changes? Is there any big anniversaries that I've missed? Please let me know in the comments. And on that note, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button or follow our Instagram at Chisholm Hunter Watches, or my Instagram at HB Lifelens, or our podcast, Into the Mind Podcast. And I'll see you all very soon.